Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another Men of Purpose podcast. I am just so effing joyful to be sharing space with literally one of my favorite people in the world. We had a couple years where we just kind of lost contact, and I feel like when we came back to, like, it just kind of went off without a hitch. And that's how you know, like, you found like a special friend and you become just lifelong friends. And so for our listeners out there, I just wanted to give the warmest of welcomes. I can't say enough good things about her. Star Hansen, what's up, girl?
Hey, Desi. I'm so excited to be here with you. I love that we've talked twice in preparation for this call, and both times you're like, why are we not recording? We're not allowed to talk without a microphone present. I think that's the new rule of thumb.
It is. It is. Because, like, for our listeners, like, we just, like, kind of like, oh, how's it going? And then I think we might have gotten into, like, second 90, like, minute 30. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm pressing record.
I know, we can't stop. It's a mixture. I feel the same way. It's like we met when we did our TEDx talks, and
Yeah.
it was like instantaneously we just loved each other. We were like,
Yeah.
you're totally my people. It was, yeah, it's just I just love when you come across people like that where you're like, how did I do life before you? There was no
Yeah.
life before Desi. I always call time BS, like before Star.
Yeah.
I said to my boyfriend, I said, honey, well, now that's BS because it was before Star. And he's like, what do you call AS or after Star? And I was like, S. Yeah.
AS.
Oh, yeah. You're in the good ass now time. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love seeing you. For our listeners out there, you're just gonna hear, probably 2 hours worth of just loving on one another, because I really value our friendship, my friend. But for our listeners out there who don't know you, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. So tell our listeners what you do, what you're passionate about, and just what makes you an amazing person, my friend.
Awesome. So my name is Star Hansen. I'm a professional organizer and clutter whisperer, which means that I help people to use the clutter in their life to overcome blocks in their world. So most people look at clutter and they're like, oh, clutter is such an impediment. It's so hard to deal with life with clutter. And I'm like, there's a block inside of you that's causing that clutter. And so I basically am a clutter detective, and I use the clutter to help us figure out what is the block inside of you, set you free of it. So you don't need the clutter anymore and your life just flows.
Oh my God. I love the way that you explain that too. And I know, like, we don't do the same things, but we kind of do the same things. So you have to have that, like, go-to saying of what you do. And so you have that fleshed out beautifully. I love it.
Well, it's so funny. I always say to people, if you knew what I was really going to do, you would have never hired me, because no one is looking for a spiritual transformation through your clutter where you're going to do 8 hours of therapy. Like, no one's like, oh, that sounds great. People are like, run away from that girl. But the truth is that it's such a powerful journey. And this is what people are after. They want the real transformation. They don't want to spend another week or month doing activities that are just going to, fall off in another month. So we've all had enough failures in that way. And I'm here to give you your last shot. Like, let's just get it done so that you never have to deal with this again. Same exactly like what you do does. It's like, how do I give you the tools to be successful for the rest of your life? You don't need to count on me.
Exactly. And so, Star, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, again, I went on my little puppy walk. I had to walk my puppy so that he's not losing his fucking mind while we're recording.
I have no promises about my cat. She may lose
dude, please. I might just bring Herc in here and let's just get crazy. Yeah, right. So I was thinking on my walk, and I was like, how do I want to start this? And I think where I really want to start is, like, where we met, because we haven't actually had an opportunity to talk about, like, the aftermath of being able to crush a TEDx talk together, right? Because we did a great deal at training, and I love how God, universe, whatever you want to say, I love how it works, because you and I were in our small little cohort practicing our talk together, right? And so, like, you got to express a great deal of vulnerability, because I don't know about you, but that was my very first TEDx talk.
Same.
Was it yours? Okay. Yeah. So to me, it was like a bucket list item I needed to knock out of the park. But what I really needed to tell myself was, like, dude, you can do hard things. You can do hard things. You are capable. And I think that's the thing that, like, really spoke to me during the process. So we haven't had a chance to talk about the aftermath. So for you, like, just doing it, obviously the engagement from the talk has been amazing for you, right? For both of us, really.
Totally.
So talk to me about like the process for you and the aftermath.
Yeah, so I always wanted to do a TED Talk. I just thought, oh, that would just be the pinnacle, right? Like bucket
It's
list.
so dope.
Yeah, it is. And I love public speaking. I'm one of the freaks in the world who doesn't have a public speaking fear, that I'm like, just put me on stage. Like right now, you could say, Star, go in front of 5,000 people and talk about eggs and organizing. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay. And I would do it. Like,
Yeah.
like my brain just works in that way. But so I applied for the first TEDx talk with TEDx Tucson because I'd gotten an email from them. And I thought, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring. They're going to say no, but I'll just keep in mind. It's me telling the universe that like, we want you to do this. And of course they didn't say no. They were like, hells to the yes, come. Oh, and can you close us out for the day? Which is like one of the highest honors. And I was like, that's no pressure. Like, and at the time I lived in California, and I came back and my whole family lives in Tucson. I'm an 8th generation Tucsonian or Tucsonan. And it's, like it was really cool to be here. And it was so powerful and I loved it. And I have to say, like, being here with my family was so grounding. I don't know that I ever told you this, Des, but like my family is not overly significant. Like they don't fangirl on me. They're like, they're here to keep you grounded. So I'm about to go backstage into the green room and my mom's like, hey, I need to tell you something. And I was like, yeah, what's up? She's like, when you get home, because I was like from out of town, like visiting for the talk.
Yeah.
She's like, when you get home, I have some chores for you to do. And I was like, I'm literally going on stage.
Like, what are you talking about?
And I always like, we laugh about it because it's like, my head will never get oversized. It just won't. Like someone will remind me that there's like a bed to make or like I need to pick up the slack or something. I was like, oh, okay. Because we were having like a party at the house afterwards. And I was like, oh, okay. But I don't know how you felt, but it was the single most anxiety provoking activity of my life. Like I don't tend to get anxiety, but a week before the TED Talk, I couldn't sleep. I felt like I had like a lump in my throat. I was super stressed. And I think it's because it has such heightened awareness that it's like, it's not just doing a talk for a live audience. You're building something that you want to live on forever. I need it to be relevant and clear and have a message that really suggests transformation beyond when we do it.
Yeah. It was crazy kind of thinking back too, because I think that kind of looking back on like the different speakers, I think we all sort of went into our own zone of like how we were going to get prepared. And for me, like I always laugh at it because I still have the mix on Spotify. So for our listeners out there, I'll go ahead and post the mix that I had. It was TEDx Ready. That's what it's called. But I sort of like had this image of myself kind of like Eminem and 8 Mile, just like getting ready. And like that's what I listened to. And I just like that was my mantra going in. And it was so cool, Star, because I remember for me, I share the same sentiment. It was something that I was going to build on. It was something that I wanted to be like, this message is important. Because when I first signed up, I was like, all right, I'm a dietitian. I'm a brand new dad. Like, what the hell can I talk about? And then I started like looking over it more and I was like, well, shit, I just recently failed at trying to feed Rory. I can talk about that, but I don't want to share that. That's not good. And so like going through the process, I was so thankful for you because like you really helped me not only get some of the comedy out of it. And I don't know if you knew this about me. Like I'm the same way. I can step on stage and I can talk about anything, but the thing that I need is giggles or laughter. Like that helps me to ease. And so for you, like, it was so cool to have you kind of help me through some of the really key moments. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't ready because obviously our coach was like, hey, like if you say something funny, let them laugh. Don't cut them off. Like, let them laugh. I wasn't prepared for how long people were going to laugh.
Well, you were amazing.
That's the thing, though. I was like, I'm not like, you're messing up my cues right now, dude. Everyone shut the fuck up.
You don't know what comes next, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember like being paired with you and I just like, man, like you came in just so confident and you came in just in a way that I was like, damn, like I want to be like that. And I'm gonna throw you under the bus real quick, but in the best of ways. Dude, I've really valued like how nervous you were beforehand, like how many times you changed your shirt. And I was like, yo, Star, like, Star, you look amazing. Shut the fuck up. Right?
Honestly, I think the biggest challenge for the TED Talk was finding something to wear because
Yeah.
the cameras. Okay, so my trouble spot for anyone, you have a trouble. Everyone has like their thing that they're aware of is my belly, and the cameras were all at belly level or below. So you're either double chin or belly, and I was like, this is my hell. And I didn't have my wardrobe because I was traveling, so I brought what I brought, and none of it worked. And it's like every day I would try on an outfit and make people take pictures. I lost track of how many times I went shopping at 9 o'clock at night, the night before the talk. I showed up that day and I was like, I have no idea what I'm wearing. And thank God for Stephanie, one of the volunteers, because she's like, I brought this for you. And I was like, sold. Like by that time, I just didn't care anymore. But it was like the hardest thing was finding an outfit that I didn't feel like pointed arrows at my belly or my boobs or my, like, I was like, this don't sexualize me, but also like don't zoom on my
but
belly.
Listen to me. Yeah.
Listen to me and don't stare at the parts I don't want you to stare at. I know it's hard. It's honestly so embarrassing.
The amount of work that goes into something like that is just so cool. Shout out to the TEDx Tucson volunteers, man. I mean, when I tell people this, they're like, dude, you're lying. But I'm like, no, I'm not. Because for me, like the problem areas were like sweaty pits. Like I don't want to be up there a mess. I don't want to be a mess. Yeah. And so like I had one of them throw like a maxi pad right there. And it's like, it's like it worked.
So I've done over 30 TV shows, right? So I've done like, TLC, HGTV, A&E. I've done the Tyra Banks show. I've done a ton of stuff. And every time I get that call, the first thing that I think is, oh God, what am I going to wear? Every fucking time does. Not what am I going to say? Because I have total confidence in myself as an organizer. I'm like, oh, I'll nail that. But wait, what am I going to wear? Like because what it is that it's the way I look at doing a TEDx talk is it is performance art. So you have to walk on stage. If I am wearing a formal dress, that is a very different communication than if I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt. If I, it's like, and you need to find the story. Like there was a story that I did, or a talk that I did once on sharks. And I had this whole vision. I love sharks and I really advocate for them to not be killed by the millions as they are, because they're very important to our ecosystem and just our planet and our livelihood and everything. And so what I did is I basically did a love story about sharks. And I went on stage wearing a bubblegum pink dress that was like A-line and super sweet and feminine. And I was like, I'm in love. And the whole audience is staring at my boyfriend and they're like, you lucky guy. And I want to see a picture. And I like take the picture off and it's this giant shark. And everyone's like, what? Like, but it was like getting them to like have an experience. So like whatever you're wearing is part of the experience. And I know for me, the challenge when I'm doing TV and when I did the TEDx talk is I want you to not think about what I look like. I want you to just know that I've got my shit together and you look at my face and listen to my words. And that's really tricky as a female because like mama's got some mammary glands. Okay. Like this is very easy to look real fast. So it's like, I have to work really hard to move that attention off. It's like, there's nothing to see here, folks. They're for milk. Go. It's like, so it really, it takes a lot to be like, oh, I don't want, people to be thinking of me naked this whole talk. Thank you.
Yo, shout out to you. So the term mammary gland has been mentioned for the first time on the Men of Purpose podcast right now. So thank you.
Do we have a Men of Purpose bingo? Like, can we play?
I think we should, because at the first one, like, I think we said penis. Like, I was like, dude, oh, wow.
Oh, if you want to do this, I'll fill the board right now. I have a mouth like a sailor does. Like, prepare yourself, listeners. Ready.
Oh my God. I freaking love that. So thank you for that. We'll definitely play bingo as we're going along.
Mammary glands is on the map.
Well, I think, Star, like looking back, I got to see you flesh out the talk. And I got to see you absolutely crush the talk. And for me, like you, along with others, helped me kind of like think about life a bit differently. And so you have coined yourself as like the Clutter Whisperer. Tell us about that. Tell us about the evolution of you being the Clutter Whisperer, because it's such a fantastic thing. And it's not, for me, like your message is not just about like, obviously the things or the clutter, but it's also like schedules and how we clutter ourselves. And like, there's just so much. I'm like, holy shit, this is great. So talk to us about the evolution and like where you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, so when I started organizing, it was funny. I did a class last night, and what my first ever client ever was in that call. And I was like, did you know that you were my first client? Because it was like a trade. It was like a friend who's like, you're good at organizing, come do it. And I didn't even know it was a thing. And so when I started organizing, it happened in my world a little accidentally. I was like, oh, suddenly this thing I'm really good at and I like it. And it took me no time at all to realize that it was not about the stuff. It was about the humans having the experience, and that there was a much
Yeah.
deeper journey. And I always knew I was a healer, and I saw the opportunity really quickly for organizing to be that catalyst. And so right away I just tracked it. I was like, oh, I'm holding space with something so much bigger for these people. And it's grown so much. And one of the interesting things in my journey was like, I started my business when I was 24. I was a baby. I remember wearing my
Shout out
glasses.
to you.
That's crazy.
God.
I was like a toddler. Now I
That's
look
great.
back, right? And like, so I started my business when I was 24, and I used to wear my glasses to work and a blazer jacket because I wanted people to take me seriously. I mean, in truth, I look the exact same now as I did at 24, as I did at 14. I just have like more smile wrinkles, but like
I love
literally.
it.
But it's like I work so hard to be like, take me seriously. But the truth is that the intuition that I had has only grown. And even from the first year, I was known as the spiritual organizer because I wanted to talk about the real purpose of the clutter. Why is it here? What's going on? And I feel the same as you, that the TEDx talk really helped step me into another level, because Mary Reed, who's the coordinator, and Doug Stevenson, who is the coach, they were both pros. Like, Mary pushed me, and she was like, Star, I get a lot of shit about me being hard on you because everyone's like, oh, she's so natural. And it's like, but she's like, I know you can be better. And I was like, I want to be better. So I love that she
Yeah.
asked me to take my idea and push it further. Right. So anyone who has an idea to do a TEDx talk, please know it's not about if you're a good speaker. It's, do you have an idea, and have you pushed that idea beyond what the standard norm is? And have you taken it to the edge? Like, are you uncomfortable saying what you're
Yeah.
saying? And that's
Yeah.
where you want to be when you give that talk. And so, yeah, so for me, just being able to open that door and push that through, it has been so powerful. And I kind of stopped giving a fuck if I was
Yeah.
okay with what everyone else thought. Like, oh,
Yeah.
do you guys like how I'm phrasing this? It's like, no, if two people need to hear this message and that's my purpose in life, I will go talk to those two people. And the other
Yeah.
100 people who want to talk about boxes and labels and like folding techniques, there's plenty of people who are going to talk about that. I want to
Yeah.
talk about why your heart is broken and how you're using clutter to cover that. Like,
Yeah.
or how the clutter is stopping you from actually wanting to take your life to the next level.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, let's go there. Like, let's go to where the juice is. So it really has been incredible to use that opportunity to like do deeper digs inside of ourselves. And even then, it's like afterwards, I remember I was working on a book, and the first few versions of what I was being asked to create were so out of alignment. And after doing that twice, I was like, yeah, I'm going to walk away from this for a minute, and I remember I had to go to my agent, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not feeling good about this. And I walked away, even though I know I could have pushed it and gotten a small book deal and done this thing. And I was like, I don't want to write that book. I want to write
Yeah.
this book. And if it's
Yeah.
not gelled enough to go to be published yet, I'm not like, I'm sitting on it until it's time, because I have a message and I have
Yeah.
something to say.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into that, because I think, kind of thinking back, shout out to Mary and Doug once again, is like, Doug did such a fantastic job as our speaking coach. And for me, like, I don't know about you, but I live my life through metaphor. Like, I like to think of myself as hero's journey. Like, that's how I operate. It's what gets me up in the morning, where I'm like, I'm gonna go be a hero somehow. I'm just gonna go do it, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that he came across, and I tend to find this with people kind of living their life, is like, I remember him saying, like, you all sound like fucking academics. He's like, no one wants to be like PowerPoint slided to. Like, they
Right.
want to feel. They're here to see you be successful.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of times people forget that. Like, let me say most, not all, most people want to see people be successful. They want to see you be your most authentic self. And I feel like, Star, for you, the stories that you tell are just so, they're hero's journey. Like, it's what I hear. Right. And, you told the story of a couple people during the talk, and I'm sure you have a bunch of others, but one of the ones I really want you to tell our listeners is a story of, I think it was the guy that had half of his bed like cluttered or something like tell us that story, because I think it's so much that has to do with clutter and intimacy, and it's just I remember hearing it, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. So that was James. And James had this beautiful home. He lived in LA, and he was like tall, dark, handsome, good looking, right? All the things everyone, wants a man to be. And he had all of that. And I walked into his house, and I always am a little sketch when a man hires me. Like 95% of my clients are female. So the 5%.
It's because of your mammary glands.
Exactly. They're like, we recognize that, mama. Like, totally. But when a man calls, I'm like, where did you find me? Are you coming on to me? Are you trying to murder me? Like, I'm just a little bit more like,
yeah.
aware. And most men that hire me don't have a lot of clutter, which adds to this great mystery when I walk into their house, because I'm like, where's the plastic? Is there an axe? Like, what's happening?
Like, just walk on flat, like, oh, I'm just painting. Like, no, you're not. Goodbye.
Like American Psycho. Like, I'm like, am I okay? Like,
yeah,
the safe word. But so I walked into his house, and the front of his house was beautifully organized and decorated. It looked like a Dwell magazine advertisement. It was beautiful. He had taken time and painted and chosen beautiful furniture, and it was really gorgeous. And I'm thinking, like, again, yeah, like, am I about to be murdered? Like, it's like, what's going on? But I walk in, and he's such a nice man. Like, I joke about this, but also, like, that's just, part of life. So we walk in, we do the whole house, and I'm thinking, what does he want me to work on? And then I'm thinking, it's coming on to me. Okay, what's really going on here? And then he's like, let me show you the bedroom. And I'm like, Lee's story.
Like, dude, take me out to dinner first. Got me out.
No, he takes me into the bedroom, and he's like a little hesitant to open the door. He's like a little like, and he pushes open the door, and on the left side of the bedroom is this giant wall of boxes. And the boxes took up from behind the door all the way to the wall, completely covering the partner side of the bed, the nightstand, like that entire side of the room was covered. And then what would have been the partner side of the bed was also covered, and like laundry and paperwork and like candy wrappers, like that bed was covered. And he had like one space for him to sleep, but everything else was cluttered. And again, even in his bedroom, everything else was organized except that area. And so for me, as a clutter whisperer and clutter detective, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at not where is the clutter, it's also where isn't the clutter. Like, because where you don't have clutter tells a lot about what's functioning well in your life. And where the clutter is built up tells me a lot, because every room in the house represents an area of your life. And right. And then every object within that stuff basically tells a part of the story of how you're getting your need met by having that stuff there. And so in this case, we basically worked through the clutter over the next few months, and it was actually way more that stuff was keeping him safe. So he had been in a really traumatic relationship that did not go well for him. And he hadn't dated in at least 10 years. Like, it had closed his heart off. And, it is far easier to say, oh, I can't have anyone over. My house can't, I can't have someone come in this deep. It's easier to say that than it is to say, I'm terrified you're going to rip my heart out and stomp it.
Yeah.
And so I can't have you over because I don't have space, or, even if you do take up with someone else, you have to go to their house. So it's like, I'm playing it safe because I'm only letting you in so far. And so the clutter really was acting as this beautiful buffer for him. And then when we cleared it, like, it was really, we have to go slow. We have to take our time. It's an emotional process. It's really a journey. Nobody hires me that just wants me to put things in a box with labels. You're on a journey if you're working with me. And after we got done, I remember, like, within 6 months, he called me, and he had started dating someone shortly after we finished our process, and they got engaged, and they're still married. It's been years, and he's still married. They're super happy, and it's beautiful. And it's because he did the work of showing up for himself and facing those demons, because I think it's really unfortunate that in our society, men aren't given the emotional support, right? We're not in old caveman days where women are home in a compound commune together, and men are out on their own hunting and fishing, right? We're all living together, and no one is making space. Not no one, but it is not often that there is space being made for men's complicated feelings or their fears or their process. And so it really is important to honor that. And our clutter can be a very safe and positive way to do that, because instead of sitting down and saying, hey, therapist I've never met before, I'd like to show you my sad little heart bits, it's like, like, you get to sit down with someone and work through your clutter, and you get to have some wins. Like, okay, this is going well. This is going well. Oh gosh. And this part is ripping my heart out. And then we work through it, and then we keep going. And it's this beautiful dance of like really achieving something, which who doesn't like to achieve something, along with healing something. And this ability to rock back and forth between the two of, I can get something done and have a big feeling, and then I have something to do when I'm having that big feeling, so I don't have to sit with the overwhelming sense of this feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right, because I think in a lot of ways, I like to like refer to myself as like an enlightened man, because my father was an amazing, or is an amazing man. And I've talked about this on our podcast before. Like, he just really struggled to be a really great husband, because, it was his conditioning. And I think in a lot of ways, just a lot of the guys that I know is that we're not giving the emotional tools to be able to be very transparent and to be vulnerable, because it's not seen as a strength. And I like the parallel that you talk about with James, where it's like, okay, well, he has these really deep traumatic hurts, and this is how he's expressing it, because he hasn't been given the words to be able to say, like, I'm hurt.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
Always inspire me to say more. I'm like one of the, so, and part of the problem in our society is nobody gets help until the house is on fucking fire. Nobody gets, you've got to be at the point of divorce before you are willing and able to like reach out and have someone say, oh, let me help you with that. Like, oh, help me. Like, no, you wait until the house is on fire. And it's funny because when I start dating a man, he gets like a book list. Like, I'm like, oh, it's so good to see you. Please check if you've read any of these, and if you have,
do some homework.
I could pretty much, like, my boyfriend was like, this is a lot of books, and I'm like, it's just gonna make things easier. But like one of my favorite books is Getting the Love You Want, and it's all about really loving communication. And that book, it's written for couples who are on the brink of divorce, is what it's written for. And yet I use that with friends. I use it with clients. I use it with family. I use it with my partner. I use it with myself. Like having that blueprint of why we have the extreme feelings we do in the ways that we do, why we manifest the partnerships and the bosses and the coworkers we do, is really important to know, because then what ends up happening is we're not letting our biology drive the boat. We have the tools to say, oh, I picked that person because they remind me of my mom and I'm trying to work through that baggage. Okay, I can work with this. And here are the 5 simple things, actionable things we can do to make these hard communications go better. And it's so simple as when you don't know the tools, it feels like an insurmountable mountain. And the minute you have the tools, it becomes actionable and clear and just like, oh, that's what's going on. Got it. Let's go.
Yeah. Because I think, Star, in a lot of ways too, and I really love, you talked about this in the TEDx talk, and I've heard you talk about it in different like blogs or things or interviews that you've given. And I'm probably going to butcher it, so correct me. You said that like you can tell when a couple is absolutely in love or when they're on the brink of divorce. What are those telltale signs? Because it's so funny. My wife and I have been together for 6+ years. We've been married for like so May will be our 2nd anniversary. And I always like joke, like when things are a mess, like, oh my God, I'm passionately in love with her. I'm in love with her.
Honestly, there's both though. You're probably passionate in love with her and you want to kill her sometimes. Like that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like fix the bed.
Because it's like you will pick the one person in 100 who's going to trigger and push your buttons. So it's not a matter of like, oh, I just need to find the right partner. I haven't found the right partner. If they piss you off, it's the right partner. Like they're inviting in your next level of growth. Like that's just the truth of it. It's like I could give you 100 people and 99 you would get along really well with. Like you and I would never be attracted to each other probably because we would get along all the time and be like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. It's right. But it's like, but you would never, like your penis would be like, I'm just not feeling her. Like it's just
she's great to hang out with, but god dang, like she doesn't piss me off.
Exactly. But there's something we want that fire, because that fire shows us where we're working and growing. It's exciting, it's challenging, it's intriguing, it's powerful. And I love that about relationships, because they take wherever you are. You can only grow so much on your own. And then a relationship goes next level. It's just, I mean, through the roof. And it's like, if you look at a rocket, do you want to be at the underneath the rocket when it's going into, no, I don't want that fire hitting me, but that's exactly what's happening. Like you're elevating, and it takes some force to elevate. And so, yeah, I just think, so I did a class recently that's for sale on my website, and it's about decluttering love. And it's so powerful. It's like, okay, because I thought I was going to be married at 19. I was like, I'm going to get married and have 10 kids.
Why?
Because in my mind, that was like
19.
Yeah, like, I want to, like, well, because my parents did. My parents were high school sweethearts. They got married.
I'm like figuring out how to get a fake ID around that time.
Oh, I already had one by then. Are you kidding? I was a girl. Like, I was like, oh, like I remember. Sorry, sidebar for anyone like who's into
sidebar.
Always sidebar with us. That's why we have extra time, because we're like, we just can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go to. Who cares?
Yeah, when I was in high school, I used to tell my parents that I was going to a party on Melpomene. That's like a road on the east side of Tucson. I was like, oh, we're going to this party on Melpomene. My parents were like, okay, because they're cool parents. We're like, go to that party, girl. Have fun.
Yeah.
While I'm down on the U of A partying on the college campus, right? And I got a break. I actually drove by Melpomene the other day, and I was like, oh, that's where it is. I just like the name of it. I just thought it sounded nice. Oh, Melpomene. I'm on Melpomene.
Why does that name sound so damn familiar? It's on the east side.
Yeah. It's a north-south road. But I was like, oh, that's where I used to tell you I was partying when I wasn't. So yeah, in college, I was in the bars. It was like, yeah, I was always like one step ahead. So there was, but I thought I was going to be married at 19. I wasn't, but man, I am masterful at manifesting love. Like I wrote this list in high school of like 5 pages of what I wanted in a partner. And I'm proud to say that I've manifested all of those things. It just took like 7 partners to do it. Like it took more humans than that. But I do, it's like the power of our partnership is really what takes us all to the next level. And the fact that we can actually use that to grow is powerful. Just like we use the clutter to grow, or we use the food to grow. This is all a vehicle. It's how you use it. It's how you drive that car is what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important too, because you had just mentioned that like you're kind of running classes, right, and just helping people. And I think in a lot of ways, what is really cool, especially for our listeners out there who have relationships or are looking to get them, is that like your stuff can really speak about where you are in life, right? And you just mentioned that like things that are organized and cleanly are the areas that are going really well. Right. I have this like cool little home studio that I've created for myself because I really wanted to do more food demos and whatnot. And so if you look in here, it's like, all right, this looks great. But then if you go out where like my daughter has all of her stuff, it's like fucking disaster.
Totally. But that's also, the chaos of kids is important, right?
Yeah.
Like, chaos of kids is really big. They need that creative space to play. And then we get to help them as they're adults in charge, like help them figure out, well, how do we take that chaos and move it into some sort of order so that they can play in the chaos when they want, but that's their homeostasis, like that they have both,
Yeah. Cause I think that's another thing too. Like I came from a family that was completely like structure. Like you get up, you fix your bed, things are clean in your room, bathroom gets clean, and then you can go do whatever you want type of thing. Yeah. Right. And so coming from a family of 5, like each of us had chores, and for the most part, like the house was like orderly and clean. My wife didn't come from that. Right. And so what's really hard, like my daughter gets to be creative in her own ways. It's really hard for me to be like, oh my God, she's making a mess, and not see like, oh, she's having her creative time. I need to shut up and just get out of the way.
Yeah, it's because like there's a mix of, we want our home to feel a certain way to us that feels powerful and inspiring. And then there's also, we know, like I spend a lot of time with my friend who has 2 toddlers, and when I play with them, half the time I'm really, really playing hard, right? I'm like, let's do this. And the other half, I'm cleaning up behind them as we go. Cause I'm like, I don't want to spend up another 3 hours cleaning tonight. I'm just like, you guys are going to put everything back in. Like, oh, okay. It's just, but I feel like with kids, it's really, and it's the same with us. How do we allow ourselves to create chaos so we can play? Because give me an artist and they don't want to only play with 3 colors. They want to have 27 and go crazy and just explore. Just like me as a wordsmith, like I love doing poetry, but if you said you can only use these 20 words, I'd be like, gross. Like I'm not writing. Like, no. But it's, like you want the chaos to create from. So, but it takes a minute to process our own feelings. Like my partner and I are very different with our stuff. He's the partner that has not wanted me to organize his house. And he is, honestly does. He doesn't. And he's like, I like my stuff the way it is, but I'm like, I could make it so much better. And
Yeah.
better. And I'm like, but I don't understand. It's like, but I don't get the truth is like, who am I to say that my version of complete should be everyone else's? Like it's only because it's in my home that I have an expectation on it. And it shows my own insecurity that it's like, if you walk into my house, Des, are you going to judge that his sock drawer is overflowing? Probably not. If you are like, no thank you. Like,
then get out of here.
Exactly. But it takes a second. It shows our own frailty when we have that concern instead of just allowing the people that we share space with to be free, like truly free.
Truly free. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because first off, I wanted to celebrate that you found such a special person. I saw that post the other day and I was like, yo, 100% Star deserves that. I'm so happy that she found her person and that she gets to be local. So when, you know, the world is done burning down, we're going to go hang out.
Yes.
Right. So I again, I'm walking my dog and I'm like, all right, that's a good point, because I do want to ask her about that. So as a dietitian, it's so funny because my wife will tell me about her friends, like, oh my God, you're married to a dietitian. You must like eat salads all the time and eat so well. And my wife is usually like, yeah, he's not that type of dietitian.
Right.
Right. So
on food fights. Okay.
Exactly. So the other day, like I'm like rushing around making dinner. I didn't really get to eat lunch. And so like, as I'm making dinner, I have like hummus, a couple things of veggies and chips. And I'm just like eating on the fly as I'm making. And my wife comes in, she's like, oh my God, what is going on right now? And I was like, I'm hungry. And she's like, we're about to eat. And I was like, I'm hungry right now. I skipped lunch today, got super busy. And she was like, I so want to take an image of this and send this to your clients. And I was like, please do. I always tell them that eating is an imperfect process. And so I want to ask you how clutter, organization, and things like that work in your relationship.
That's a good one. So we talk about this a lot, and thank God he's willing to let me share stories, which is great. Because if he was like overly private, I'd be like, oh no. But, you know, what I respect about him is he knows himself, and he has from day one, and he doesn't feel like he needs to shift and dance for me. He doesn't feel like, oh, I needed to clean when I came over the first time. It's not like he tried to make it perfect for me, which I appreciate. But the challenge is that I can be what my mom likes to call the dictator. So not when I'm working. If you pay me and I'm working, I'm like all heart. Like, I'm like, what do you want? How do we manifest your best life? Like, let's do this. You can do it. But I tell you what, Des, if you are in my home and you are threatening my experience day to day with your fucking clutter, I swear to God, like,
better get your shit together.
Get it together. Get it together. Yeah, it's actually so funny. So like, I get in here and I had said to him, like, there are things that I need. I said, I just need you to understand that I come with a wake. And he's like, what does that mean? I was like, you know, like when a boat goes through the harbor.
That's a really good way to put this.
Yeah, I'm like a yacht, like a cruise ship, like all these like layers. So, you know, I came in and I was like, look, for me to feel like we're in homeostasis, I need the bedroom to have some shifts. And so we shifted the bedrooms, but then I don't stop because to me, it's so easy. So basically like, then we're like we go in the kitchen and we're going to cook dinner together, and he heats up the stove and I throw myself on the ground, rip everything out of one of the lower cabinets, categorize it. Well, I haven't asked his permission, by the way. We barely put it together. And I was like, do you need to keep these? Can I throw these away? Is this really important?
Yeah.
And takes me 10 minutes. I put everything back, and poor guy has just been like dry humped, like by his girlfriend. And he's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, he'll be crossing the house and I'm like, hey, I just opened this stuff. Do you need these? Like, how important is this? It's like, I'm trying to like purge and contain and organize. Where do you really need these at? So he's great about rolling with my punches. But the truth is, what I've had to learn in our relationship is to dial that back. Like, I need to embrace the imperfection of, we're not moving as fast as I would move if I were working. And I have to like allow the imperfection, the fact that we're in transition, be a part of it, and sit with my own feelings of discomfort. And he also has to move a little faster than he's comfortable with, because, you know, like I cleaned out the pantry and there was all this expired food. And he was like, I want that to go to a homeless shelter. And I'm thinking like, they don't want creatine powder. 2018, you know, I'm like, they're not into that. But I wanted to honor his experience. So I gave him like a month.
Yo, everyone has that.
They all do, I know, because like they make it expire in a month. But I was like, can you please handle this? And after a month, I was like, honey, I'm starting to feel suffocated by the stuff in the hallway. And so we had to have a talk, but it's like, but just like anything else, everything that comes up, clutter, food, whatever, it's inviting a deeper relationship with ourselves and with our partner, that it's like, okay, it's not a matter of this is my house, my rules, or him doing it that way, but it's us coming together and saying, look, I want you to have the time and I'm going to support you to get it done, but I also need it done within this timetable. Like this, I can't have this sitting here for 3 months because you're uncomfortable. Like I'll sit with you in your discomfort and then let's take action that feels really positive. There's always a solution for both people every single time.
Yeah. I love the fact, Star, that like the theme of what you're talking about there is like understanding that there is some difficulty with obviously merging two people.
Yes.
And there's even further difficulty to call one another out, but in a way where it's like, let's have a conversation, because even just like with what you had said, like, hey, I'm starting to feel a bit claustrophobic with these things in the hallway. Right. And I think a lot of us either figuratively or metaphorically have those things in the hallway that we just need to either get rid of or put away. Just get out of my face. Right. Because because we have that. We have that here too. And it's so funny because for me, as we're talking about this, it's like, you know what? Like there are projects around the home that I'm like all right, sidebar.
Do it.
You guys are used to this by now. Who cares? All right. So when we bought our home, it was like, all right, so so I remember in one of my therapy sessions, my therapist was like, all right, create your safe space. So what my safe space had was white cabinetry. So when we moved in, I was like, all right, white cabinetry it is. So I'm going to go ahead and paint it. Well, I royally fucked it up. Just like, it was horrible. Luckily, I had a friend who came in and we just knocked it out during a weekend, and it was great. So for me, like it's a little bit of trauma because I'm like, I don't want to do another house project. So I'm gonna fuck it up. And so things don't end up getting done in a timely fashion. And like, it's really great because my wife and I get to have some of these convos of like, all right, so now that the kid is down, now that we at least have time to connect, it's really hard to not just connect on just like scheduling, but just also just like, hey, what are some conversations that we need to have? Right. And I love the fact that you had just talked about that, because I think it's so important. And I'm glad that you also talk about, like, I come in, you said wakes, right?
I come in with a wake.
Dude, so do I. Like for me, it's like my bugaboos are like, if we're doing some type of pasta or anything, like, let's make sure it's whole grain. And also don't organize the fridge. Like I got a system. I need to make sure first in, first out. That just goes back to like my school
Totally.
to navigate it against food waste. That's just let me have those things. Don't touch those things. Right.
Yeah, totally. But I love that it's like you're so passionate about that you'll do it. It's like, okay, good. Somebody's driving that ship. I can go take another part now.
Yeah. Because I think that stuff is important. I think, like, for our listeners out there to understand, like, you're all going to have your stuff, but making sure that you are also taking the time and the bandwidth to have these conversations, because they are really important.
Well, and one of the biggest ways that I see people hiding is obsessing about someone else's stuff. Like, oh, you should see my mom's clutter. Oh, it's so bad. Like, you should see my aunt's clutter. It's horrible, right? Like, they're so obsessed with fixing someone else's problem that, by the way, may not be a problem. Your mom's clutter or your aunt's clutter may not be an issue to them. They're the ones who have to deal with it. If it's an issue to you, that's a you problem. Like, that's not a problem. And so it's like, people are so much more comfortable looking outside of themselves and wanting to control that, because it's too scary sometimes to sit with our own shit and have to feel that discomfort. Like, I have control issues. It's one of the things that, I mean, and I found a career that lets me make money.
Be controlling.
Honestly, that should be like, I should get a gold star for that alone. Like, I'm making money doing the thing that most people need therapy for. So it's, and I know how to do it with boundaries. And so, but knowing that, it's like, I get to go a little slower when it comes to my triggers for that control to pop up, or my need to manage certain things. And instead I get to just lean back. Like I said, when I put my Bose socks away the other day, I was like, how does he survive like this? I was like, and instead I just I went live for my community, and I was like, I need to have some support controlling my feelings. It's like, what's really going on? It's not his socks. His socks are fine. Honestly, like, it works for him. Who am I to say it's wrong? But it's my own feelings. And so I have to sit with that it's like, okay, well, there is a fallacy in my mind that says that if our house was perfectly organized, then I don't have to be afraid of what comes next.
Yes.
And we know that true. You can be married with 10 kids and still get a divorce or separated. But the truth is that from this last year with the transitions, I had gotten rid of everything I owned, and I was in a state of transition when COVID hit. And then I've been in a place of like, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? And so it's scary to feel like, oh, I still am in that feeling of uncertainty, and me wanting to control the organization of the house makes me feel like everything will be okay, even though the truth is we don't know that. So I need actually to focus on my fear more than organizing, because that's not the real problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another area too, Star, that I really wanted to talk about is what I've been doing with a lot of our guests, is talking about like one big thing that 2020 has taught them. And for me, it was like, one, how to be resourceful, and two, like how to believe in myself. Like I can do hard things. It's like what I tell my daughter all the time, like, hey, you can do hard things. Get up. Let's go. Right.
Totally.
And so for you, like you talked about like you were in a state of transition, and you and I talked off air a couple of weeks ago about like just updates about what you were doing. So like tell our listeners, like, what did 2020 teach you about yourself?
Yeah, 2020, came with a wrath, and it was, for me at least, a beautiful wrath, right? Like, I mean, not all the time during it. You take a temperature at different times, and I've been like, this year sucks.
Yeah.
I don't have my bright, shiny silver lining right now. But what it taught me is that my self-care is a part of my career. That actually has to be integrated for me to be sane. So before, I would just run and work, 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 and I could stay in this like frenzy of busyness constantly. And what I've learned this year is that I am better for everyone in my life, including my clients, including my business, when I am integrating my self-care as a part of it, my meditation, my yoga, my workouts, my whatever. It's before it seemed like it was the thing that I'd put on the back burner because it's like, well, that's for me. I'll do it later. But the truth is, you get 1,000 times better me if I do that stuff, if it's even an abbreviated version of it. So that's one of the things that I learned, is because I had all this time, and I realized a lot of my frenzied busyness was self-created, because I never stopped. I never Netflixed and chilled. I never was like, I'll just relax and go deep on this show. I worked harder because I hide in my work. I'm a workaholic. And so I will go deep down that rabbit hole of work. I'll work, there was weeks where I didn't even take a day off because it was so uncomfortable to sit with my feelings. And so being able to see that it's like, oh, I have nowhere to be, nothing to do. I don't have these old constructs.
I can just be.
Yeah. And it's still a practice, because it's like, oh, I have to, if I wake up and I'm anxious and I feel like I'm behind, for who? I'm my boss and the employee. Like, who am I? Who's behind and who's punishing? No one. So it's like, okay, great. Because what I do know to be true is that when we're in our flow, when we're in our genius zone, we can do 8 hours of work in 4 hours. I know I can. Like I can get an obscene amount of work done in a very short period of time. And it's more about getting the right things done than it is getting all the things done. The universe is there to meet you and to help move things along that need to be moved along. And it's just, I feel like when we have our ego involved and when we've got to do it ourselves and we have this idea, that's when things are the slowest, the gunkiest, the most frustrating. And so this year has really been me learning how to dance in harmony with the world at large, and my career and my loved ones, and to not need to know what the next step is, and instead just show up today for what I need to do to be my best self in this moment.
Yeah. So Star, let's kind of touch on the workaholism piece, because I think one thing that I'm hearing, and I, like you, like one of the biggest blessings of this past year was for me, like given the huge opportunity just to become, I mean, you know me by now, right? Just to become a better father.
Yeah.
Because I've been
so lucky.
Yeah. And at the same time, she'll like tell me like, Dad, I need space. I see you a lot. It's like, bro, I see you a lot too.
You poor thing.
Right? Yeah. So like,
I made her so cute. So that
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like half the time I'm like, yo, I love you too. I'll go to the other room. Like, okay. But one thing that I've been constantly hearing is like, there's been this transfer to working from home. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can really resonate with this, is like, there was a point where you were kind of clocking in at, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, but now you're clocking in as the teacher. as someone who's trying to take care of themselves. And so like you're working way more hours than you thought you ever could. And right now, a lot of people might just be really struggling with like, well, the only way that I can't feel the fear behind the pandemic or the fear behind what's going on with our presidential race or whatever, right? It's like the only thing I can do right now is work. And so, Star, for you, like, what was the moment that you recognized that like, damn, like all I'm doing is working and I'm working to not feel? And that moment that you kind of transitioned towards like, fuck, I got to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so it's for me, it's one of my main coping mechanisms, like overworking and ice cream. Like that's all wine or cocaine or like,
Yeah.
maybe sex. Maybe those three things, just those three things.
Three
Those are
things.
that I'm like, checking out. I'm like, oh, I want to
All
go
of those have to be available at any moment.
That's all I want. Come on. But I've known for years, like when I've had a breakup in the past, the first thing I do is book a month of client work somewhere else. I accept a really big job that will not let me stop. And I've seen myself do it over the last 15 years, that's one of my big coping mechanisms. So this made perfect sense. And it always has, like, it seems really real. So when COVID hit, I was in the middle of a launch. And for anyone who does online marketing, you know, a launch takes a lot of time, energy, and bandwidth. So there's so much, it's like, I feel like I'm giving birth during my launch times. And so it's a lot of energy. And when it hit, I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I stop my launch, keep going with so it actually, I was in the middle of a time where I actually had to work. I couldn't just let it fall apart, and I needed to pivot it properly, because when you're marketing to your list, you can't blow an opportunity, because I can't call them again for another 3 months, and I need to make sure that I'm not wasting their time. So, so it really felt real. But I honestly think it wasn't until, I don't even know, maybe 6 months in, that I was like, I've done everything I needed to do. Why am I still aggressively feeling like it's not enough?
Yeah.
And having that moment of, like, pull back. I think the other thing too is, so June is a really tough month for me. So my sister took her own life 10 years ago. And that time of year is her birthday and her anniversary. And it doesn't matter that it's been 10 years, that month wipes me out. The beginning of June, end of May, I start feeling like somebody put a wet blanket over me, and I move so much slower, and I don't have my Star Hansen shine. I'm like barely putting one foot in front of the other. And so I think that month also was kind of maybe the kickoff. And I was like, wow, I really can't keep feeling like I need to be feeding this fire, because my body, because of the grief, has become unavailable to me now. And I think that was actually the initial part where I thought, wow, something has to shift, because this isn't sustainable. And I had to slow down and shift, because again, the goal was perceived. The goals were all perceived, but the beauty is that because it's this weird time where it's not like I can go and do the things I used to do. The feeling is like, what the fuck, let's play. Like, let's do the thing that like may fall on its head, because guess what? I wasn't going to make that money anyways. Let's do this thing that, it's like, let's try working a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week. Let's try doing 10-hour days instead of 8. It's like, let's play with working out in the middle of the day. It's like, I have the option to do anything. And so it went from feeling like this frenetic I have to being totally stopped in my tracks, and then saying, let's play, which, reminds me so much of you, Des, because it's really, that's where I want to be operating from, a sense of play. I want it to be fun and joyful, not to feel so heavy all the time.
Which is really hard. I think I really resonate with a lot of what you're talking about there, because at the start of the pandemic, for me, like I kind of got into this scarcity mode. And I've told the story to our listeners, and I'll go ahead and tell it again, because I think it's just it's so fruitful. At the start, I was like, shit, no one's gonna want to buy nutrition coaching right now. Everyone's gonna be in scarcity mindset. Damn, like I need this dream of mine that I've been trying to build. Like I need to put it on hold a little bit. So I took a clinical dietitian like interview and ended up getting the job. And like I remember telling the woman, like, let me go talk to my wife. Let me think about this. What I was trying to say, like, I don't want to do this. Let me think about this.
Yeah.
And I remember getting off the phone, and I was like, no, like, shout out to all of our clinical RDs out there. I know we got a lot of like RD to Bs and dietitians who listen to this podcast, but that's just not me. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't like clinical dietetics. Like I left it because I did not like it, because I wanted to do something more for me. So I remember having that moment, and I was like, shit, okay, I got to figure this out. I got to figure it out. So let me start with coming from a place of giving. And so a couple other really great friends of mine, and we did a like online symposium, crushed it. And like that kind of provided me with an opportunity to be like, okay, for me to be successful in this, I'm going to have to add value first. I'm going to have to connect with people first. And then also make sure that I'm taking care of myself in the process. And really the only way to do that right now is to play. Like I have to figure out how to to be with my daughter all the time and have her be okay with it. And it's something just so fruitful because I think in a lot of ways you get lost in the clutter of our schedule and our meetings. And so like that was one thing, Star, that really spoke to me. I was listening, I forgot her name, but she's from New Mexico. I think she was like in a New Mexico pageant. You were on one of her podcasts.
Ashley Mora.
Okay. Yeah. So like I remember listening to it. I was like, oh, shout out, because I'm from New Mexico. I was like, all right, cool. But you guys had briefly mentioned something about like the clutter of our schedules. Because when I think of clutter, I think of just like stuff. Mm-hmm. What are some other things that provide clutter?
Yeah. So clutter definitely is our schedules. It's the things that we commit to. It's the things we think we should do. It's our tasks, like the things that we actually need to do or perceive we need to do. It's also like our social media. It's our phones. It's our email. It's our text messages. It's advertisements on the television when you're watching it. It's the ads on the radio. It's, I mean, everything, because we're in sensory overload constantly. Even if you walk into a room that is organized, but the objects in it feel out of harmony for you, that's going to feel like clutter, even if it looks good. You know, if you walk into a space that your ex-partner set up and it looks amazing, but all you think of is the fight you had about choosing the wall color, it's like, paint that damn wall, you know? So
yeah,
there's a lot. But I think the biggest source of clutter is our minds, because the truth is that what gets in the way of us solving our clutter and solving anything, you know, this with, you know, we talked about this with COVID, but then it's also with people's food. It's mindset. It's the fact that when you look at that clutter, you don't think, what I think when I see that clutter is, oh, what is it that we're creating? What is here? Like, let's break it down and look at it and then transform it. I'm looking for solutions. When you look at your own clutter, people see, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get this together? Why is this still an issue? Like everybody else has it together except for me. What's going on? And you go on a 5-minute beating yourself up parade. Who wants to do anything after they've had a club taken to them for 5 minutes? Nobody.
Yeah.
But when you take action, it's like, but you've already beat yourself up so far. So really the first and foremost clutter that we deal with is the one between our ears, which is, okay, how are you talking to yourself and how loving can you be? Because I tell you this, if your partner talked to you like that, you'd be like, bye. You wouldn't do that. Yes. But yet we do it to ourselves, and we're meaner to ourselves than anyone else could possibly be. And so the most important clutter to address too is just to start off with our mindset, because and it's actually a lot simpler than we think. It's not necessarily that you need 8 years of therapy and all of this. Most of us have like 3 or 4 consistent nuggets that we're working on, right? So for me, one of them is like, there's something wrong with me. If you look at any part of my life where I'm struggling, that is one of my themes. There's something wrong with me. Oh my gosh, my body, there's something wrong with me. Oh, my partnership, there's something wring with me, right? Or it might be like, one of mine also has been, I'll always be alone. I don't know where this came from, because like I'm never alone, Des. Like, I haven't been alone in years. Like I like pray to be alone. But that's one of my fears. I've sat there on my birthday crying and being like, I'm always going to be alone, as I get 150 text messages on my phone. And my friend's like, you're insane. Like,
shut up.
I got 10. Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's because it's the wounds that we came here to heal. And that's what the clutter and the food and the mindset offer us, is the option to heal. Because the truth is, when you heal that, the clutter will go away so much easier. The need to medicate with food will go away so much easier, because you're not in a fight or flight, you know, war within yourself. And that's what we're really fighting, is that internal clutter within our minds.
Yeah. You know, Star, I really love that. There's 2 things that I kind of wanted to address, which I think are so important. I oftentimes tell my clients this, shout out to you all if you're listening. Like, hey, let's be aware of the things that we tell ourselves. Because if we were to personify our negative self-talk, we wouldn't hang out with that person. That person's a fucking asshole.
Get out of my head.
Yeah. Like, dude, I'm not having coffee with you this morning. Shut the fuck up. Like, I don't want to talk to you.
Go away.
Right. So like, Exactly. Like you're not coming over for Christmas. Like you're not invited. Because it's funny that you talk about past conditioning. Like for me, like a story that I constantly really have to work out is you're not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't get this done. You're not as powerful as you think that you are.
Yeah.
And this goes back to a moment in my life when I was 6 that this happened. And so through a lot of therapy, a lot of self-care work, I oftentimes have to like take myself, and it's a reason why I keep my 7-year-old, in my desk. Because anytime that I feel myself like talking shit to myself, I'll look at the 7-year-old, be like, yo, you are talking to that little man right there. Stop
Yeah.
it. Right. And so it's really fruitful. Right. And so like piggybacking off of something like that, I kind of want to ask you now, this is completely anecdotal. I don't know if there's any research to say it. So for our listeners out there, I am talking about a possible correlation, and I'm asking for Star's expertise to say like, yo, have you seen things that are similar? All right. So coming from, I've been in work with eating disorders for 10 plus years. Okay. What I tend to find is that with those who really struggle with binge eating are the same people that when they talk, they word vomit.
Mm.
They're also the same people that at home, it's complete disarray, like complete chaos. And on the opposite end, those who have issues with restricting oftentimes restrict their voice and are completely type A.
Mm.
Is there any clout to what I'm saying with things that you have seen with clients?
Yeah. So the interesting thing with clutter is that clutter is two heads of the same coin, two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
So clutter is often a way to be seen or a way to hide. And so if you look at so when you look at somebody who's had like physical, so, okay, like we'll look at what fat is, for example. So fat is your body trying to like take toxins and surround them with water so that they're safe and you don't die, right? It's like, oh, we'll just like make a lot of extra stuff so that this doesn't kill you. Enjoy, right? So it's like we're basically trying to like fluff out and keep ourselves safe with this protective barrier around us. That's kind of what fat is. It's like, oh, let's just fix the world. So there's a part of us that's like hiding behind this wall of like, but also desperately wanting to be seen. So you could at the same time have this extra wall because you're trying to be like, do you see me? If I had, would you see me? And it's the same thing with the type A. It's actually, and it's funny because it's the same with clutter. If you're so regimented and so your system is so tight, that's just as much a form of hiding as it is hiding within the clutter.
Yeah.
Like you being so like attached to perfectionism and making sure that things go a certain way is a hide. It's not allowing what is in the present. So, I mean, I do think that I can see both ways for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because sometimes you have someone that feels like they have to match this really heightened expectation, just like living in total chaos because they have no idea how to create systems that match the bar in their mind. Like the bar is so high, they're like, I don't know how to scale it, so fuck it. Like I'm just, like living out loud in this way. But it's true, like a lot of times it really is, it's always a communication. And it's like, hey, listen to me, pay attention to me, see me, acknowledge me, know me, or don't even look at me. I want to be invisible to you. It's like, and I had eating disorders. I've had all of the eating disorders. It was a delightful chapters of my life. And it's, it's a lot.
I remember you telling it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like I had orthorexia, which is the trickiest little fucker. Like that one, because like I'm eating so healthy. Look at how healthy I am.
Trying to treat it is also like, yo, like,
I can imagine. I still struggle. Like I'm like, I don't know, is it healthy or not?
Yeah, that one's so tricky to treat too, because it's like, listen, I think one way I have found a couple ways to help people like kind of truly connect with it. And I think you and I are oftentimes say some of the same messaging, except yours is clutter and mine is food. But it's like, hey, is this food or something like that keeping you away from your most important relationships? Like, are you finding that you're saying no to dinner with your husband or dinner with your wife because they don't have what's on the menu that you like? Like, come on, like you got to look at it that way.
Right.
And usually what I tend to tell a lot of people is like, look, the only way through your most authentic self is through food. And I feel like you and I tell really similar messages when you're like, the only way through who you want to be is through your clutter.
Yeah, it's true. And you know, we learn so much about ourselves through it. You know, like there were times I went to France when I was in my 20s, and I was so strict on being vegan. And all I could find in France, because I didn't speak French, was almonds. Like I just
Yeah,
ate
I was gonna say, like, what are you gonna eat there?
I ate almonds and salad and almost passed out every day. Like my poor body was like, we need something else. But I was
Yeah.
like, instead of having that experience of like, oh, I ate, you know, creme brulee on the, you know, whatever. It's like, I didn't do it. I just like, was like, I'll have these almonds and, you know, but it's, you know, like, and it's funny because it really does. I'm amazed at how it is a lifetime journey. So I think the worst of my eating disorders, I think, was when I was bulimic and anorexic in high school and shortly thereafter. And I have
Mhm.
been, thank God, free and clear from that for a really long time. But it's been 10 years of working on intuitive eating, 10 years of actually trying to not like medicate through food and
Yeah.
really making that a conscious, you know, try. But because of the orthorexia, and again, it's like anorexia, bulimia, whatever, it's like these are just different hats for the same challenge, right? Which is just like, I don't feel safe and I'm looking for some sort of control to help me feel like I'm not going to fall apart and die, right? So
Yeah.
it's that journey. And you know, like a few months ago, I was getting really bad migraines, and my doctor was like, oh, let's put you on this anti-mold diet, because she did all these tests. And so I had to go on this anti-mold diet for 3 months. And Des, I still don't know what to do now. Like it ended, and she was like, oh, ease back onto food, add one food a day and just see how you feel, which is honestly my version of hell. I'm like, so you want me to torture myself slowly?
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
But I ended 3 days before Christmas. And so I have been in slightly a tailspin ever since then, because my brain knows reckless, eat anything you want and just have fun and eat last supper, or it knows total regimented eating. And so
Yeah.
the last 2 months, I'm like, I don't know what
What
I'm,
to do?
and what I chose to do was I just made an appointment to get my blood work done, update it, and go talk to my doctor and say, because my brain tells me I need to go back on the diet for another 3 months. It wants to repeat the cycle when the
Yeah.
truth it was medically suggested and it's done now. So I can, you know, it's not like me not eating that means that I'm being,
Yeah.
but my brain isn't well enough to know that. And I can understand that personally, but also there's a lot that goes on in our minds. And it's amazing to me how long it takes to come back from these things, because, you know, it's hard to find a solution with the problem. Like my
Yeah.
brain is the problem and it's looking for a solution, and it lies, and it's like, oh, but if we just did it one more time, that's the solution, when it's not the solution. So it's
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of ways too, like you talk about the clutter of the mind, and you're absolutely right. I think, you know, I was just off a client call this past weekend, and this person was talking about like how they weren't sleeping very well. And I'm like, listen, you got to get the TV out of the room, or at least shut it off. Like it's going to impact your quality of sleep. And this person was like, well, then my mind's not going to shut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which is like, yeah, it's something that's so hard,
Right.
because it sounds like what you do with a lot of your clients is like you're truly helping them connect with why they're doing something.
Yes.
Right. So
I'm
I'm going to
helping
put you on
them
this.
make peace with themselves. I'm helping
Yeah.
them make peace with themselves by making peace with their clutter. Like that's,
Yeah.
if you can do that, you're Teflon. Nothing's gonna fuck with you from that place.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Look, by the way,
Yeah.
you realize that I didn't answer one of your earlier questions. I'm like,
What
oh,
was it?
how I can tell when a couple is like either in love or gonna kill each other.
Oh shit. So let's go back to that. That's
We'll
a
go
really
back
good
to that
question.
later.
I forgot that I asked that.
I know, I forgot. I was like, why didn't I answer that question? Oh yeah, melpamine. Yeah, but so put me on the spot. I love to be put on the spot.
Well, maybe we can piggyback both, because I think that's probably in line. So which stories of people that you have had, being the Clutter Whisperer, um, which stories have absolutely broke your heart, and then obviously have had some triumph?
Like for my clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can tell one story that feels like it's really resonant for both. So I had a client that was in a very toxic relationship and they couldn't get out of it, right? And the desire is always like the fantasy, the fairy tale world is like, if you're in a toxic relationship, you get out. But the truth is that's not necessarily possible for everyone. You know, you dial back 100 years and there's so many people who stayed in very unhealthy marriages because of financial resources or physical challenges or whatever. And this particular client was unable to leave the partnership. And it was a very toxic partnership. And I knew that early on, and she communicated that to me. And it's not my job to judge or say, oh, you should do things differently, because she's doing the best she can with her situation. And when we were working on her space, the room that was getting the most disorganized was her bedroom. And it was getting specifically disorganized with things from the bathroom. Now, just to kind of like scale back and, give you a little overview of what the rooms mean. So the bedroom is our room for intimacy, right, with our partners. It's also our room for our self-care and our rest. And so this is like the space where like the bedroom is who you are, right? The clothing closet is how the world sees you, but the bedroom is who you are. And in this case, she didn't sleep with her partner, which was a blessing. So she had this room to herself. So this was really the room of who she was. But again, she couldn't get out of this relationship, and this was her only safe space in the house. And the objects that were cluttering the room were almost all from the bathroom, or very cozy, meaning like it was towels and bathrobes and slippers and cozy clothes like sweats and sweatshirts and things like that. And so I said, look, like I'm seeing that you're looking for comfort, that you are the things, because like so basically in the bathroom, when we go into the bathroom, what are we doing? We're releasing toxins. Either we're like releasing them from our bodies, or we're washing them off, or we're cleaning. And then what's the first thing we do once we release those toxins? It is followed up with some sort of cozy, cushy wrapping or wiping, or something that's like, right? It's like you get this cozy towel wrapped around you, or this toilet paper, or like whatever. It's like followed by something cozy. And so essentially what it was is that she was in this room that was the essential essence of who she was, looking to find some cozy for the toxin that she was having to live within. And so I asked her, yeah.
Shit. So, woo. Yeah. Yo, that's an episode somewhere. I
know, right? So I said to her, I said, look, so I know you can't leave this, and I know it's really toxic, and I see that you're getting comfort from these items. How else could you get that need for comfort met that doesn't include you cluttering your space? And she thought about it, and we worked on it. And what she decided on was a pet. She decided to get a dog. And so she got a dog. The clutter went away. And the dog is like the perfect thing when you're in a toxic situation, because like someone has to take the dog for a walk and feed the dog, and oh, the dog is here. And you get the unconditional love of a dog who's like, oh, you're back?
You're back. Oh my God. Want to be my best friend?
Yes, you are a rock star with a dog. My cat is like, I shall lick myself. You may touch me twice before I bite the shit out of you.
I got it coming for you. You better back up.
1 too many strokes. Back off.
Yeah.
Like, you love me again? Best day ever. So, having that unconditional love was beautiful. And she now had a purpose and an intention and a drive in her life, besides trying to just avoid the toxic person that she couldn't escape from. Yeah. So and the truth is that when we find those small inlets, that's when we can start opening that crack to be able to like change our lives. So maybe in that place, she couldn't have left her partner, but maybe now that she's starting to really honor what she feels are her limitations and starting to take action in the areas that are actionable for her, now she can actually start to see the other solutions, because there are always other solutions. It's just, we have to shift our mindset and get our needs met enough to be able to see them.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that should be an episode somewhere. Of just like stories from Star. I mean, that's a shitty title, but we'll workshop it. Executive producer.
I have the title of my book. I already know the title of my book. So
can you spill the tea on the Men of Purpose podcast right now?
I think so. So it's called If I Die, Hide the Porn.
Oh shit. Okay. I see that Clubhouse title all the time. I'm like, yo, I'm so glad that you mentioned it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I was working on, actually, it was when I was working on my TEDx talk, and I sat down, I was with a friend. We were over near Yellowstone, and we were in this like lodge in the Tetons. And I was like sitting, I mean, it's like, honestly, this is like, I'm going to like humble brag right now all the way, but I'm going to do it.
Please.
So we were there. She had this wildlife, a summit that she was at. And I was like, oh, I'll come and I'll write when I'm there. So I'm surrounded by all of these nature filmmakers, right? These people who are conservationists and trying to make the world better. And they're all around me in this lobby coming up with ideas, and how are we going to save the spotted leopards, and how are we going to save the sharks? And that's what they're doing. And I'm sitting here looking out these windows, these 3 giant windows at the Tetons. It was breathtaking. I'm like, this is a magical moment. And I'm starting to work on my TED Talk. And all of a sudden I hear the words in my head, if I die, hide the porn. And I cackle laugh in the middle of this lobby. I can't stop laughing. And I was like, That's my book. And the whole time I was writing my TED Talk, I kept thinking about my book. I was like, oh, and it's been hard because I didn't know what I wanted it to be. I was like, oh, I think it's, because when you talk to a publisher, they're like, make it an organizing book where you have steps. And I'm like, that book has already been written. I'm so not interested in that book.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your soul. Like, let's go deep about like what is in here that hasn't been talked about. And so that's what it's about, is really diagnosing like, okay, what are the objects in your life that are terrifying, that if someone else saw, you would be mortified? Like, I have them too. There's two objects in particular, and both revolve around my greatest trauma in my life. So one is this box of VHS tapes from my childhood, and another is a blue dress. And both of them, as I say those words to you, Des, my stomach is turning right now. Like, they're organized, they're put away, they're not affecting my day-to-day life, but they are an unfinished chapter of my life that I have to solve, and I don't know how to do it. And so so in the book, I basically talk about what these mean. And it's, like the VHS tapes, for example, they're VHS tapes of us when we were kids. No big deal, right? Except that
this is you and your sister, right?
Sister and brother, yeah.
Yeah.
In the story in my mind, I was the perfect child. I was like I'm the middle child, so I'm the good girl, and everybody loves the good girl, and I did everything right, and my sister was a handful. And so it's like you have this story in your mind of how things are. And then I watch these videos, and I was a real asshole. Like, I'm just going to say, and I know all siblings were assholes. I know it's normal, but like most siblings don't lose their sibling to suicide years later, right? So if you're an asshole and then your sibling is like, well, everybody was an asshole, like whatever, we were both doing it. But I pick myself apart because I think, did I cause that to happen? And I know I didn't, but it's very normal to wonder if you did, right? Like, I know that I didn't cause her to do it, and I couldn't have stopped her, but also it's normal to question that, to be like, wow, did I do something that I shouldn't have done? Should I have been more loving? I wish I could have been more loving. I wish I could go back and fix that. And so having to sit with those, like, I'm not ready to get rid of them. They've been digitized, but I need to look at them. And it's terrifying because it's having to meet the worst version of myself. The fear is not, will I discover I'm an asshole? It's, will I discover that I caused my sister's death? And that is a lot to sit with. So having to be present to that, and I'm just one person, and other people have very similar stories of what their clutter means. And that's why If I Die, Hide the Porn feels perfect, because it's like, what is the thing that is terrifying to you to uncover? And yet, if you uncover that, that's the thing that sets you free.
Yeah.
But it takes time.
That is so powerful. In so many ways too, because the title is amazing. Right, titles is amazing. Like, I'll read that right now. And two, Star, what you're talking about there is just innermost workings of how pain and shame act themselves out, right? And I think what makes you really fantastic is, I'm sure that you, as you continue to work on that stuff, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, like, just the thought of something like that happened to one of my siblings would absolutely cripple me, right? And it would cause me to think about, like, what could I have done? Did I do anything? And I think, Sar, that's what makes you really fantastic, is that I'm sure that you're taking these experiences into your clients' experiences and helping them to uncover that thing, right? That really painful thing.
When it's like, no one wants an oracle to be their guide. Like, nobody's like, oh, you perfect paradigm, tell me exactly how I do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Back off. Like, when I work with someone, it's like, I can touch their pain because I'm not afraid to. I'm not scared of my own pain. I can touch yours and I can relate to it. So it's like, if you're standing with someone that you think that your pain might break them, it's hard to let go. And it's so important that we just own it. And so it's one of the reasons why I have clients who are like, you should be a therapist. And I always say, you couldn't pay me to be a therapist because they can't talk about themselves. And I do not expect you to go as deep as I want you to go without putting some skin in the game, which means that I share about my sister, and I share about my weight, my weight or my eating disorders. I share about my partnership. And that's a conversation, right? When I got into partnership with my partner, I was like, so I talk about my life. How okay with that are you? Is there a boundary? And so we have certain boundaries that it's like, I want to do a video on us, and I'll make the video. And instead of doing it live, I show it to him and say, are you into this? Is there anything that doesn't feel good? And almost always he laughs and is like, it's fine. Yes. Like, he's like, but you have to, like, when you're sharing your own experience, it's really, really vital that you I don't know, that you're doing it in a way that like, I don't want to be vomiting all over people for the sake of my own therapeutic process, but I want you to know that my skin is in the game too, and that I'm here, and that you're not doing this alone. And I think that it makes it a better process, because I know I only want to learn from people who are also on the path. I don't
Yeah.
want to learn from someone who's like, I'm done. I'm like, I don't believe you, liar. Go away.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. You know, my wife is a therapist, and she does have to keep a really large amount of anonymity. And so, like, there are so many things, and I always joke, like, she's super introverted. And so I always joke, like, yo, I'm just her mouth. Like, I'm just taking what she says to me. Right.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, so one, like, no, you don't want to be a therapist, because I think what really helps you, Star, is like you're able to tell these stories, and by default, people are able to connect with you. Because I think that's the thing. Like, I really tell a lot of my story to a lot of my clients as well. And something that I learned a long time ago is like, people don't want you to fix their problems. They want you to be able to sit in their darkness with them and not change.
absolutely.
Um, and that's something that I do imperfectly all the time, right?
Constantly.
And
Well,
right, and so, like,
we're paid for our opinions. Like, we're paid for
yeah,
our for me. So sometimes someone comes to me and I'm offering a solution, and I'm like, oh wait, were you just wanting me to receive you? Okay, got
yeah, I,
it.
yeah. It's like, oh shit, should I? Yeah, I should have just listened. Damn
Totally.
it. Well, I've been conditioned now in my marriage to do that. Like, what's my role here?
Yeah,
You just want me? Okay, yeah, listen. Okay, that's usually what the answer is.
totally.
Just shut up and listen.
Yeah, that's all we want. We just want to share. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I. Oh my god, I put my foot in my mouth all the fucking time.
Me too. I know. I'm all good. Both fit in there, actually. It's like, I didn't even know
Yeah,
it was possible.
yeah.
Hmm.
All right, so let's go back to the question.
Okay. So
The million.
the question I evaded earlier. So how do I know if a couple is in love or wanting to get a divorce?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Go.
So, oh man. So I had a client who, I'll use an example and then I'll answer. So I had a client that when I walked in, their dining room was a hot mess. Like, there was every single ounce of objects, like paperwork and bags and objects were in that room that could be in there, covering the table, under the table, in front. Like, there was so much stuff in there. And so that's normally a hide for something, right? So when you've got that much stuff, it often is a hide. And so when I started working with them, we came across this bag of fruit underneath the table. And I was like, "Oh, there's this bag of fruit underneath here." And they were like, "Oh yeah, that's so that my husband doesn't eat it, because I like organic and he doesn't care. He'd eat an apple off the ground. So I'm not giving him a good organic, because he'll just like eat it and not even think about anyone else. So it's hiding." And I was like, "Oh, she's thinking about leaving her husband." Like, I just, in that second, because of like where it was and what was going on and like 10 other things, I was like, she's thinking about leaving her husband and she wants to get organized so she can do it. Because when you're messy, you can't just call a U-Haul truck and be like, bye. You are like, it's like, okay, this will take 3 months, I guess, and be totally painful. And it took her almost 2 years to be able to admit to me that that was true for her. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not like I said to her on the first date, you want to leave your husband, don't you?
Yeah. What's going on here?
Because it doesn't matter, right? It's like, I'm there to help her transform. And the truth is that through the process of getting organized, she learned to have her voice. She learned what she needed. She was an introvert too. And it's our introverts in this society. By the way, there are more of them than there are extroverts. It's just that we are louder. We are far, far
Super
louder,
loud.
right?
Yeah.
So loud. But they're like, I think they're smarter than us, and they're way, I mean, they're like,
They're way more empathic.
they're so cool. They're like every partner.
I don't want to say that they're better people, because I'm just way too competitive, but
I'm not gonna say they're better. Sorry.
a lot of you are better than me.
I know. They open their mouths and I'm like, that's brilliant. But they look at us and they're
It
like,
needs to be on a podcast.
exactly, they're on there. Yeah, but so it's like, she had to learn how to set her boundaries and how to ask for more time when she was being spoken to. And she needed to learn how to say what she needed and take care of herself and step off the codependency train. And there was like a whole journey that needed to happen for her on top of the organization of the house. And what was beautiful is that at the end of that, she made the decision to stay in the marriage. And they're actually happier than they've ever been and more in love, because the truth is she loved him and they have something really special. It's just that she wasn't speaking up for herself to make that a workable situation. And so a lot of times what I experience with people about seeing in this space, like, are we in love? Are we over it? It's like, okay, where are you living? Right? Just because you are a couple doesn't mean you're sleeping in the same room And that can be a great thing if you're not, and it can be a great thing if you are. It's just, you have to kind of look at like, what are the details telling you? So the bedroom is the sexual intimacy zone, right? So you have to see, how's the bedroom faring? Are both people sleeping in there? Is there room for both people? Is one person dominating someone else? Is one person an afterthought? And so a slice into the bedroom, and this is what I talked about on my Decluttering Love class, but it's like, do you have 2 nightstands? Or is there just 1 nightstand? And like, really, that tells a lot about like who wears.
I'm like going through this checklist in my head right now. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I know. Totally. And it's like, is there space, just like we talked about with James, is there space on both sides of the bed for 2 partners to walk, across and have access? Or is there space for both partners to sleep? Is there space for both partners equally across the bedroom? What else is in the bedroom, right? So sometimes you get people who are hiding in their kids, and suddenly all the toys are in the bedroom and the books are in the bedroom and the pictures of the kids are all over. And I'm like, I don't know about you, I don't want to have to do any of that in front of my kids. So like, out of here. Like once they're like not a year or 2, it's like, get it out of here. And it's hard because some people do have to share, like some people are in transition right now. And so their spaces are not optimally set up where it's like, yeah, they might have to have their kids stay in the bedroom a little longer or whatever. But as a whole, like try to make that bedroom a sanctuary for you and your partner. That should be first and foremost the foundation of love, because the truth is, the 2 of you together, you come out of that bedroom and go into the rest of your life, into the rest of your family. And that family is as strong as you 2 are coupled. When I was engaged to this man, he had 3 daughters. And I loved those girls and that experience, and it was amazing. And it showed me so much how you have to be aligned with your partner. I do not give 2 fucks about you liking me, kiddo. That is not my job. My job is to love you and make sure you are tooled up for the rest of your life. And guess what? You're not going to like me a lot, and that's okay. That's not my job. I'm not here to be like the most liked person in the room. I'm here to make sure that you're cool. I'm here to make sure that you're okay and you're loved and you're strong and you're safe and you're capable. So you 2 as a couple being strong, which requires, a bedroom that feels like an oasis for you to come to do your chats, to be able to like dial in, is one of the most important compounds of going out and having a strong family.
Absolutely. That's so powerful too, because I think very early on, my wife and I, we decided to co-sleep, and we had to have some difficult conversations behind like, why do we want to do this? And I remember going to like a breastfeeding support group. Like I'm the only dude there, like all females with their kids, and co-sleeping got brought up. And a lot of the wives are just like, it's not that I just like want to like not have sex, but like, if my husband wants sex, like we can do it elsewhere. Maybe I just don't want to. And I remember sitting there, I'm just like, I'm the only male in here. Like someone's got to come on my behalf to be like, yo, that's complete bullshit.
It's funny how people don't feel safe to set the boundaries. Like when you if we can normalize boundaries, right? If it was okay to normalize boundaries, then we wouldn't have to use our stuff or our children to speak for us. Like the truth is that there's a book called Come As You Are. It's one of my favorite books in the world. And it's not C-U-M. I know what you're thinking. It's C-U-M. But it's like the thing. It might as well have been. The picture looks like a little coin purse that looks
B7,
like
bingo.
No, oh, fantastic. Yes, come B7. Come on, B7. So this book is amazing because what it does is it basically normalizes all sexuality, right? Like, so it basically talks about, this woman is genius, and she talks about how there's gas and brakes in all humans, right? So gas is like how easily you get turned on, like what revs your engines, and the brakes is how fast you get turned off, or like how constricted you get, like when you have like a hold back, right? And so you get a lot of people who maybe have very slow gas pedals and very strong brakes. So it takes very specific situations for them to feel comfortable opening up and being sexual. And other people who are like, their gas pedal is like so light you can look at it and it turns on, right? And then like they have no brake. They're like, just that one thing stops me from being turned on, right? So it's like, and if you pair 2 of those people together, which often happens, one person is like, what's wrong with me that I don't want it? And the other person is like, what's wrong with you that you don't want it? When the truth is, there's nothing wrong. It's just that 2 people function in different ways. And this book beautifully describes why partners have that fight all the fucking time, that you don't need to have it, because all you need to understand, like, I work like this, you work like that. For us to be harmonious, we need to come together and create this. Like sometimes I'm going to give you what you need, and sometimes I need you to give me what I need, and we're going to, but I do think because we are this weird ass society that doesn't talk about sex, like put it in a can and just, it's too private for words. And I'm like, talk about this shit, please. Like I'm big, even when I'm dating someone, before you touch my body, we are having the talk. Like
The talk.
you don't
Yeah.
get to touch my body until we talk about sex. What's your STI history? What's your trauma history? What are you into? What turns you on? What turns you off? Like, I don't want to find that when we're having sex. I want to know before, because if you don't like something that I'm really into, there's no point in us walking down this path, and vice versa. Like, why would we fall in love with somebody who is totally ill set up for us? And yet that's what we do all the time. We go in and we're like, oh, it was amazing sex the first time. And then we didn't get along for the rest of the time because we never discussed this thing. So it's like, to me, it's such an important thing to talk about, so that then we can have our boundaries and feel strong about it. That it's like, hey babe, my body is just being like dry humped by our toddler all day. I can't have you touching my tits right now. Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, but T's on bingo also. T's on bingo, everybody.
T's on bingo.
But you know, it's like having those boundaries are super important, so that you can, because wouldn't you want to know that about your partner and be like, okay, babe, I love this partner in this other way. And she could be like, my calves, go for my calves. And it's like, yes. So,
yeah, calves.
Totally. Like, I'll just massage the shit out of her calves. Fantastic. You know, it's like, you just find your way through, you know, it's like that. Then you're in the world of yes and, not like no and no and no and no. It's like, ooh, what else is possible? If I couldn't touch your arm and that was a big turn on for me, I'd be like, well, what else can I turn? What else is available? Like, what else is possible?
Yeah. Cause I think too, like, I'm kind of just thinking about, you know, the way that our society functions. I mean, I always laugh. Like, if I want things to really pop off from a content and engagement perspective, I'll either put a picture of my daughter on and people just like engage. Right. Or, and it's happened before, like I'll have someone and we'll be talking about sex and gut health, or libido and nutrition, or something like that. And like, I just get wild engagement. And it's so funny because that'll happen. But at the same time, there's so much clutter to having these conversations about sex, to having these conversations about just our own sexual health. You know, it's so funny. I ask my clients all the time. And when I first ask them, like, I can see them over video, kind of just like tensing up, like, listen, before we kind of get into it, there are things that we have to talk about, right? Because your sexual health is a part of your health history, right? And so, like, it's just so much.
But it's the same as you're right. It's the same as the clutter and the same as the food. You say, what are you into sexually? And people start to freak out, because it's like, well, what if they're not into what I'm into? What if they judge it? What if there's something wrong with it? Like, maybe they don't like it, or it's too personal. Don't talk, you know, it's like, versus if it was just, I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, and it's so funny because men are always so turned on by this conversation. So like, you really try to have it over the phone. Like, let's do this over the phone. Like, we need to talk. And it's never
like, hold on.
Because they think it's the green light to having sex. And I'm like, no. This is just me deciding if I want to let you in the next ring of the circus, buddy. But it's you know, like, just asking those simple things like, okay, what turns you on? What are you into? How often do you like sex? How long does sex last for you? Like, it's, you know, like, you want to explore these options because there is a variety of experiences available. You know, it's like, I've had partners that had 0 recovery time. And I mean, 0 recovery time. I don't even know how it's human. I think that they're part, you know, like robot. You know? And then if you have kids around, it's like, you're lucky if you get, you know, like 5 minutes. Like, get
just
it.
If that, hurry, go.
Come, just go. You know? Take while you can go while I'm sleeping. It's fine. I don't care. But you know, it's like there's just like there's this conversation, because it does, and it really does bring up the same drama that clutter does and food does, where it's like, we judge ourselves instead of standing strong in ourselves of who we really are. And is it okay to be yourself? Is it okay? And why in the actual fuck would you want to be in relationship with someone who is not okay with who you are?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth of it. If you're into foot fetish, find somebody who's also into feet. Like, who cares? You know, it's fine.
Yeah. I really love this concept of just having uncluttering conversations. I think I just came up with the title of this podcast.
Yes, I love it.
Right. How to have uncluttering conversations.
I take it and do something too. I think this is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, this is great. My friend, I love the shit out of you, dude.
I do too. You're amazing.
I'm so glad that we got to do this. I could talk to you for an hour more, but I'm going to go ahead and package this next question with our last 2 questions for you, because you've been amazing. What I'm finding, like, obviously there's a shit ton of like Netflix specials of like organization, There's minimalism now. Like there's a bunch of things. So like I was going to ask you, like, now that people watch those shows, like what are their next steps? But I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback it with like, yo, now that people have watched those things and they need to go deeper, they need to find their purpose behind why they need to unclutter. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so people can find me on my website, so starhansen.com. I'm on IG at star.hansen and Clubhouse. And man, I mean, I think it's one of the most important dives that you can do, because I think, you know, the challenge with the Netflix shows that are on right now and the big organizers that are really well known at the moment is that they stop where the emotional part starts. And it's why people can start to get organized and then they're like, I don't understand why I can't finish the job. And it's because color-coded labels and minimalism doesn't actually hit what's really going on. And so it's like, I pick up where they leave off. So it's the conversation. It's like, I built classes around this. I'm writing a book around this. It's like, let's just take this to the next level so that you never have to deal with this again. It's really important. I wanted to share with your listeners 2 different resources. I wanted to give you guys 2 different resources if you want. So one is that I wanted to share the, I have a list of books, my reading list when I start dating someone, decluttering relationship drama. So if your listeners go to starhansen.com/declutter drama, there's a list they can sign up for. And this is like my golden seal handbook of like, okay, what do you need to know so that you don't get caught in the drama? And then the other thing that I want to offer your listeners is for anyone who's on the path of like decluttering their life, one of the hardest things can be to get started organizing. And so I have a checklist that's 10 things you can organize in 20 minutes or less. And that's at starhansen.com/checklist. And on that one, I've kind of gamified it. So if any of your listeners get it and do 5 of those 10 spaces in the first 7 days, they'll get a free session with me. So,
oh my God. Okay. So we'll make sure we share those in the show notes for sure. Cause I feel like our listeners out there, like we need to have more uncluttering conversations, and clutter is not the bad guy or gal. It's an opportunity to, I don't know, to know thyself. I think that's kind of what I'm getting from this. So,
and love yourself. It's coming home to yourself.
Yes. Yes. Oh, so many great gems. Okay, my friend, last question for you.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So if you were to have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
It would be my sister.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. It would be really hard to like choose anybody else.
Yeah. Can I ask her name?
Jenna. Yeah. I would love to hear her laugh. And like, there's been so many times since she died, anyone who's lost somebody, you miss them so much, and you miss those little conversations. Like, oh my gosh, did you see that show? Like, did you see that episode?
Yeah.
Something as simple as that, or like, did you like that? Like, there's certain songs that I just think, oh my God, she would love it. I want to like listen to music with her and watch TV with her and laugh with her and play. And one of the ways that I got through losing her was that I set up an email address that I could actually email her. And there was something about sending that email, knowing that nobody was ever going to get it, that made me feel good, that I could just send her a message and be like, did you see last week's episode of like, I feel like you would have loved this one part. And I feel like I'm in conversation with her still, even though her body's gone.
Yeah. That dinner would be a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I'd be like, we're never sleeping. Stay in this forever.
Yeah, stay in this room.
It's not going to stop.
Oh my gosh. Star, thank you so much for providing value, for being your wonderful self. Thank you so much for being a really good friend of mine, a really good person who continues to influence and motivate me. You are awesome, my friend. Don't leave after we end here, okay?
Okay, well, I'm not going anywhere. Thank you so much for this. I know we're going to talk for 3 more hours, but y'all don't this part. The next part is the unedited version.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, how is that possible? She said tits and mammary glands on this. Again, I'm like a 14-year-old boy trapped in a woman's body. So
yeah, and she said come. So like, there's just 3 things that she said.
Oh, I win.
Oh my God, awesome. So great. Awesome. So for our listeners out there, if this is an episode that really resonated with you, I want you to do me a couple things. One, I want you to shoot over to Star, to her website. Do that game that she talked about. Get that session with her. Go on, engage with her. If there's something particularly that like really spoke to you, do me a favor. Most of you are probably listening to this on your phone, so screenshot the episode and jump on IG, tag us at MOP Podcast, and just let us know what really resonated with you. As always, if this is something that you really enjoyed, 5 stars, a comment, say what up. Don't be lurkers out there. Mad love to you all. Another MOP Podcast. Peace out.